Okay, we should be live. Hi everybody, I'm Brian Waters from the QTube. I hope you can hear me. Can you confirm that you can hear me and Brian and Stefan? Can you just say hi as well? Steph? Okay, can somebody confirm that that's coming through nice and clear? It should be. We should have this sus by now, surely. I'm just waiting because there's always a slight delay, so just bear with us, Brian and Stefan. Oh. Oh, no audio. Okay. Oh, that's, where would that be? Good start. Okay. Yeah, I can see. Okay, just bear with us a sec, everybody. Yeah, I can see that something's not happening. It should be. One sec. 1 2 1 2. Yeah, I've had this before. One two one two. Okay, 1 2. No. Oh, hang on. Can you speak?
Hello?
Hello? Yeah, we
Yeah.
might be in business now.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, it's Brian here. Brian and Stefan, can you just say hi so we can check the audio?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear
Hello?
us?
Can you hear all three of us?
Hello, 1 2.
Just a second. We'll just wait for the confirmation. It takes a moment. Okay, seems like we can hear everybody. That's fantastic. Okay, let me just do some quick introductions and then we will get some of, well, I'll tell you what we're doing. So I'm Brian Waters from the QTube, and every month we release a new clip into our library for composers predominantly, but also sound designers can use these resources. But we give composers the opportunity to rescore this clip, submit it to us for review, and we also select one of the submissions to receive a string quartet session. So it's an exciting thing, and it's a new thing for this year. So this evening we are reviewing submissions for an edit that we made of the original Nosferatu film, and we got a good number of submissions for that, so it's obviously a popular one, and we're going to go through about 10 of them live. And we're doing something a bit different, and the other people that did submit will get feedback via email. So everybody that submits gets free feedback, and the benefit of this live stream, of course, which gives you a lot of insight. And we have invited this time some of the submitters, some of the members of our community, to join us on the Zoom. So I'll welcome them in shortly. But before we do that, Brian and Stefan, can you just quickly introduce yourselves to anybody that's new?
Yep, my name's Brian Morrell. I wrote the film music degree at Leeds Conservatoire. I also teach on that degree, and I'm the deputy head of the school in which film music sits in the college.
Lovely, thank you. Stefan?
Yeah, I'm Stefan Gordon. I'm a principal lecturer at Leeds Conservatoire. I work with Brian on the film music pathway, teaching film studies, directing, screenwriting, understanding film narratives, and some production as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we have 5 people currently waiting. So without further ado, this is a brand new experiment for us. We'll let them in. So we have Magnus. We have David. I don't know very much about where they're from. I know some of these are regular participants in the things that we do, which is fantastic. We have Micah or Mika. We have Paul Coles. And we have Aaron Ortiz. Oh, and we have another one. We have Daniel. He's just joined us as well. So hi everyone. Feel free to put your cameras on, but don't feel obliged. And here they are. They're appearing. Nice to see you, everybody. It's nice to put some faces to the names, the familiar names.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Hi. Perhaps if you feel comfortable, perhaps it would be nice to hear from each of you just a quick sort of who you are, where you are, and anything else you want to share with us. If you don't want to speak, of course, that's absolutely fine. Mika, would you like to introduce?
How you doing, Brian?
Hi.
Hey.
Good. Yeah, I'm here in Los Angeles, California. I just got into the composing thing about a year, and just trying to get better at it, build my portfolio, and one day be able to do a big screen.
Fantastic. Excellent. Good to have you with us. Yeah, actually, I've noticed that when you were talking, we could hear the YouTube in the background, so that might be a slight issue. But yeah, that was coming through loud and clear. Thank you so much. Can I ask you, all of you, if you're not speaking, if you can remember to keep your microphone muted, that will probably help a little bit as well. These things are a nightmare to manage. Aaron, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm a software developer. I'm from Honduras. I live in Louisiana in the United States, and I've always loved music. And I've started composing for theater and then for film, but mostly just out of the love for it. I mean, not getting paid for it or anything like that.
Excellent, thank you. It's nice to meet you. And yeah, and you've also been with us a little while, yeah? You submitted a few things. Yeah.
That's right.
Excellent.
I try to submit it for everyone, but I don't always have the time.
We like to keep you busy. Magnus, would you like to give us a quick intro?
Yeah, hi. Do I have sound?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, great. I'm Magnus. I live in Oslo, Norway.
Right.
I have a composition degree from the Norwegian Academy of Music.
Fantastic.
And right now I'm working part-time as a metro driver, so I have a lot of spare time to compose.
Excellent.
And I've figured out that I want to do film music, so I'm trying to get into that business.
Superb.
Yeah.
Thank you. And when did you graduate from the university?
2022, I think.
Okay, well, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you for joining us. David Simonson.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you all.
Likewise.
Hi. Yes. I'm basically just a hobbyist, and I've got a lifelong love of film and cinema and the music that goes along with it, and music itself. I went to film school when I was much younger, and my life has taken me far afield of all that, but it's glad to be back here with the Q-Tube, and I just hope to practice and get better. I really enjoy this, like we all do, and I'm just very happy to be here amongst such talented composers.
Lovely.
We'll learn.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for joining us. Where are you? Where are you located?
I'm in Los Angeles with Micah.
Okay, right. Excellent. See you next month.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Okay, this is great. We're covering the globe here. Come on, Paul Coles. You have to be somewhere interesting.
Hello. Yes. I'm in Bournemouth, Dorset.
Okay.
Excellent.
So a little closer to home.
Yeah.
But no, I've enjoyed all of the clips to write to. It's good. It stretches your imagination and gives you opportunity. which is brilliant. Before I was basically writing for classical guitar mostly.
Right.
So really, this is a new dimension.
Oh wow! And do you ever bring the guitar into any of the work that you do for picture?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
But I'm waiting for the right
clip,
the right video to take it in. Yeah.
Well, play to your strengths. I mean, maybe the next one might be an opportunity. I don't know. We're not going to give any spoilers as to what the next clip is, but on Monday we'll be releasing the next clip, and maybe the classical guitar could work a little bit with that one. I don't know. Anyway, nice to
get practicing again.
nice to meet you. Anyway, thanks for joining us. And Daniel.
Yes, hello everybody.
Hi.
So I live in Copenhagen and I just love to compose music, and I've been enjoying the YouTube and your clips for some time now, and it's just fun to compose and film music. Excellent. So yeah, we're just trying to get better. Excellent. So it's nice to meet you all.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, thank you for joining us. And where are you?
Copenhagen.
Oh, Copenhagen. Wow, lovely. Yeah. Okay, so we have a good Scandinavian representation. This is good.
Yeah.
Okay, so the basic format, we've never done this before, so we're winging it a little bit, but the idea really is that we will go through the scores as per usual, and if you would like to comment or ask a question, or perhaps Brian or Stefan will ask you a question, just put your hand up and I'll make sure that we get the opportunity to hear from you. Just trying to keep this thing from getting into complete chaos and lasting for 3 hours, So let's see how it goes. So without further ado, I'll hand over to our DJ, Stefan.
Okay. Right, it's great to see everyone actually. As you said, put faces to names. Right, so let's go with the.
We're gonna. Sorry, Stefan. We're not going to do a quick overview before.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go for it, Brian. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Me and Stefan, we're just going to do, certainly because we've got so many people here, just a quick overview generally of the experience of looking at all this work. And of course, as always, I mean, there was something like nearly 60 people's music that we had to listen to, and it was really good. I mean, there was some really great stuff, as always. We did find that the silent movie aspect of it was quite challenging, and it's always challenging whenever you do a silent movie, because what a lot of composers, me included, okay, hands in the air, me included in the past, if there's a silent film and there's no dialogue and there's no sound design, what a lot of people tend to do is see that as an open opportunity to basically put loads of music in there. And often we found, just with a few in the whole 60 people, that there was a few where they'd really overwritten. It was good music. I mean, it was all great music, but there was just music everywhere. And I think sometimes when you hear silence in a film, it is a very unnerving concept, and I think there's a tendency to want to fill that with music. So yeah, Steph, over to you.
Yeah, similar point really. I thought there was, listening through to them all, there was some, I mean, really creative ideas. I know like some people had gone for the more sort of classic silent film melodrama, and there was some that done more synth-based stuff. So I thought it was good to hear different takes on it. But as Brian said, I think the issue can be with silent movies, you just go, well, there's no dialogue, that's brilliant, I've got loads of space, so tendency to just go for it. So I think there was that thing of storytelling. So if you sort of think back to how, when silent films were actually, a thing, and you had a live pianist who would be playing in and out of what's happening on screen. So I think maybe a bit more kind of the shape, because what I tended to find there was two sections to it. There was the beginning bit, obviously, where we see Nosferatu in the coffin, and then we'd have the shift to the Ellen character when she sort of goes to the window, and quite a lot people went for that narrative shift, of course, but I think there was other areas that probably needed a kind of narrative shift as well. So I think maybe just that bit more in terms of punctuation, really, and sort of crafting it. I mean, it's easily done because you just go, right, okay, space, great, I'm going to go for it. So I think that was what I found. But again, I thought there was some of the writing and some of the production as well of these clips was well done. So
there's also something, just to lead on from what Steph said, just in a way, if you're scoring a film 100 years old, it's a silent movie, there is a real clash of not clash of cultures, but there's a clash between the way you would score a modern film, and then you're suddenly looking at a film that's over 100 years old, and I think that's what presents problems sometimes. It just doesn't feel right often to be using all the great sample libraries on a silent movie, and I'm the same when I do a silent movie. It's always a difficult experience. So yeah, there was one other small issue which I told Brian I would mention. And again, this is in no way, shape or form a criticism, but there was a few of the whole 60, there was 3 or 4, I think, where we found they'd used snippets of existing music. They'd basically got some existing, chords and textures and clips essentially from existing music, and they'd put that into their own music. And the point is that, in art, anything's okay. You can do what you want. But generally speaking, if you're composing professionally, you usually wouldn't do that. Even if it was copyright-free music that you were putting in, the director would expect you to do, for all the music to be original to yourself. So that's just a bit of a pointer, really. Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Okay. Good.
Okay.
So I'll assume there are no questions unless I see a hand. So let's carry on there, Steph, with the...
Okay, right. So let's start. So we've got 10 to show and then talk about, starting with George Gagnitz. I think I pronounced it right.
I think that's right, Steph.
Yeah. Okay, right. Here we go. Should be the right one. Hopefully you can all see and hear that. Let me know if there's any problem.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Audio.
Okay, so I'll go first, Steph, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so because there's 10 to get through, I'm going to try and fly through the feedback relatively quickly so we don't, like as Brian said, we don't end up being here for 3 hours. I thought this was excellent. I thought the use of synths, electronic sounds, and bordering on electroacoustic at times was really good. I mean, it's a very brave decision to actually use this kind of soundtrack on a film like this, but I think it really paid off. And often you don't get results unless you do something bold, you know. Sometimes it doesn't always work out, but this time it really did. Some really eerie atmospheric sounds created by these textures and harmonies. Sometimes, occasionally, it felt like it needed to slightly pull back from that for a little break from the ruggedness of it all, because the textures are very rugged and very in your face. Occasionally there was 1 or 2 points where I just felt it could have pulled back a little bit. Not all the hit points were made, but that isn't such a bad thing when you're using electronic music, because this kind of soundscapey approach is more of an overview. It's more of an emotional overview and an emotional commentary on the film, but a great abstract relationship between the music and the film, and very original, and worked really well. Well done.
Similar points really. I did really like this. I thought it was really inventive. It was the kind of Delia Derbyshire BBC radiophonic workshop stuff. You know, definitely ticked the box for me on that. I thought really, and the sounds. I mean, there's one thing, you know, going, I'm going to do kind of Delia Derbyshire style, but being able to make that work, then, you know.
Can somebody mute Paul? Could you mute your microphone?
Yeah, so, got it. It's all right. Just sort of having that idea means you've got to really pull it off. And the sounds were great. I thought this really, really good. Brian mentioned this about the hit points, and you can get away with it, but I did think there was places where it could have been. So there's some of the there was sort of an attempt to hit points, but they felt like they were possibly in the wrong place. So like when she's again, it's always the bit that sort of when she opens the window to me is like a big and that was kind of blank, but there was a bit either the other side of it, either the front or the back, I can't remember, but it felt a little bit in the wrong place. But great to hear something, because in the atmosphere of it, I mean, it's very obviously science fiction, but it did work for this as well. So you know, really, really nice idea and really creative, and good to see something different like that. So well done.
Excellent. Okay, no hands. Stefan, maybe the next one.
Yeah, should we go for the next one, which is I think is Mika. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Let me cue this up. Yep. Right. Okay. Here we go.
It's your moment.
Sorry. Right. Let's go for the top.
Okay. Again, I thought that was really, really interesting, really good, really atmospheric as well. Some really genuinely great stuff. At 39 seconds, I think we hear this really effective piano line, that really, really effective, and that reminded me so much of kind of John Carpenter, Halloween, and especially all these rugged chords underneath. Just really, really well done. I mean, what you were doing there was referencing John Carpenter, but not in an obvious, really kind of over the top way. It was just a homage, really. As the melody kind of evolves, there's some great underscoring and some great textures. I think 115, there's some great chords. I think you've got an F minor going to a D flat, going to a A flat, then resolving on the F chord. Just some really nice musical changes. And also, there was a couple of hits which maybe you could have made more of, like the window being open and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I think you did actually make most of the important hits. So well done, really good.
Yeah, I really like this as well, Miko, and it's good that you're here and we can you can maybe respond to us as well. I really liked what I liked was the way you started it. You had the electronic sort of vibe at the start, and then everything sort of came in a sort of, and then much more in the classic silent film way. So what you had was melodrama actually, and that's what this is all about. These particularly obviously this Nosferatu clip because of the melodramatic acting, etc. So I thought you captured the melodrama really well. And Brian's mentioned it was I love that piano motif that you had in that tradition. And I think when we did, I think Brian and I did the horror masterclass, we did It Follows, and It Follows sort of referenced Halloween, and then it was like a mixture of John Carpenter's Halloween and plus Disaster Pieces soundtrack for It Follows. They were all in there, so I thought that was a really, really nice touch actually. And I thought you've gone out of your way to go, yeah, I'm going to go for some like horror movie motifs, but put your own stamp on it, which is absolutely great. I thought the shift to the Ellen character was a little bit harsh. I thought maybe could be a transition. I mean, I know that the cut's quite harsh, but I think with the cut being harsh and the music bit, I thought maybe it was a bit of a jump to it. But I thought the energy in this was great. I also liked the melodrama at the end with when Nosferatu's dying. I thought those low strings, and then you had that sort of, the high string sort of being plucked as well. Really kind of worked. I think the only thing, because that section, and it was very focused on the strings, the samples were kind of a little bit exposed. So obviously the production of the samples, but really great energy in this piece. Was there anything you wanted to sort of point out to us about it?
Yeah, regarding that, I realized it was a 1922 film, so like Brian said, it was a challenge because it's no dialogue, it's nothing, it's music. So what I wanted to create was, if we had viewers now in 2025 to watch that movie and sort of get back, I wanted to add some new horror to it to kind of catch the attention of the audience. So I wanted to add the new, in some parts I added a little classic feel like the Ellen section. I wanted to add a little classic to go back to the 1922. So it was like a shift in era.
Okay, yeah. So that's what came across, because one of the things I noticed, and I thought there's loads of ideas in this, but because it's like 2 minutes 54, being able to digest all those ideas in one go. But now you pointed out, makes sense that you were trying to keep your foot in the old camp and bring something into it. But great energy, and as I say, those piano motifs that you included, it was really spot on actually. So well done.
Thank you.
Great. Shall we go on to the next one?
Yeah, thank you, Micah. I hope that you enjoyed being with us live.
Oh yes, of course. I love it.
I hope you didn't feel uncomfortable.
Oh no, not at all, not at all.
Excellent. I really enjoyed it. It was super.
Well done.
Okay, next one.
Right. So we've got Daniel Jensen next. Right. Okay, here we go. Right. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Well, first, all right. Actually, the keyboard may well have been me actually, because I was making extra notes for things I hadn't spotted the first time round. But yeah, yeah, I yeah, no worries. I thought this was excellent. I mean, kudos for basically doing Bernard Herrmann. It's a very difficult thing to do that. Okay, people that try and write like Bernard Herrmann, they do so at their peril. But this was pulled off really well. And you put in your notes, you're inspired by Bernard Herrmann. Your goal was to make the music aggressive while maintaining a minimalist approach, and that's exactly what Bernard Herrmann was good at. And you also say that you wanted to create dissonance and momentum. And I mean, what's good? The reason I'm reading this out is because I think it's good for someone to observe so well what Bernard Herrmann did. A lot of people, they can hear it, they can listen to it, but it takes a special kind of ability to actually understand what he's done to film. So absolute kudos for doing that. Some interesting and initially minimal use of some really evocative harmonies at the start. Very well sculptured to the scenes, and it really seems like this is really well written to the picture, like it's written forensically to the picture. Obviously, use of the psycho strings. Obviously, it isn't just the textures you've got right; it's the harmonies as well. You've actually managed to capture Bernard Herrmann, and I would argue that you've gone further because you've actually used some of those chords in a different context. So You know, you haven't just simply, you know, evoked him, you've actually gone beyond. Also, by complete contrast, some really gorgeous piano. I think it's 136 or around that. Beautifully sculptured to the picture. Really gorgeous romantic piano and string writing. It goes quiet at 156 as the guy looks up. Absolutely first class. You know, it all goes quiet, and then you get that really spooky guy looking up from the bed. And it proves that sometimes you can highlight something not through music, but by stopping music. You know, by actually pulling away from what you were doing and letting us see the guy look up from the bed. The window being open, hit, great. I mean, a really great clip all around. So well done.
Yeah, similar, but I think Brian's covered it. I thought, I mean, reading your notes, you went for Bernard Herrmann, and that's exactly what you did, and you executed it really well. I thought it was, it wasn't just the Bernard Herrmann thing, as Brian's pointed it out. There was the bit when, and I think Brian mentioned the same point, when the female character's outside and she sort of looks back towards sort of the camera, and that writing around there was just really really lovely piece of music actually. And I thought the end piece when she's on her own as well was really well written. So you definitely mixed it up. I thought that the hit points, and Brian mentioned this as well, I thought the way you executed the hit points were really spot on. So you've obviously spent a lot of time crafting it and getting it right. But I mean, my sort of the only point to really make is that I suppose if you're going down this sort of Bernard Herrmann road, it's like with using sort of sample sounds, it was always going to be tricky to get it right. And sometimes, I think the sounds were exposed a little bit, but really creative. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to do a Bernard Herrmann style score. You did that to a certain extent, but then you put your own stamp on it by doing some lovely pieces of writing that sort of really brought you quite close to the characters. So really well done, Daniel. Was there anything you wanted to add to it, to our points?
Well, thank you very much for your points. Of course, I'm very happy about that. Obviously, I like Bernard Herrmann. Psycho is a great movie, and the music is so effective. So obviously, I am inspired by him, but of course, I'm also focused on always to keep my own originality to it, because I don't want to just copy someone else. I just want to put my own ads to it, and of course, I want to keep it a little sort of, to not make it too modern, because I wanted to still keep that kind of old way of silent movies and the style of that, if that makes sense. But I'm very happy to hear this. I was actually a little surprised, but
that was great. Yeah. Just out of interest, what samples were you using?
I'm using Spitfire Audios with the pianos, and then I use like East-West sounds.
Okay.
So that's mainly what I use.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. No, really well done. As I say, because of those kind of like the psycho strings thing, I think there's a real emphasis on the sound of them. So I think maybe you can develop this a bit more. But great work. Well done.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. So we next up we have Paul. Actually. Let me just cue pause. Okay. Right. Okay.
handle.
Okay, so again, I thought this was really excellent. I mean, really well done again for invoking Bernard Herrmann, but again doing it so well, not just doing it for the sake of it, but actually adding to that. Really good stuff. Some great and genuinely fearful music for this clip. There were bits that were really scary because of the music, not just the pictures. The music, there was some really scary bits. Great use of Herrmann style harmonies and textures. Some of the strings did sometimes sound a little harsh, and I think this is either because they maybe needed a bit more reverb, or possibly the sample quality. Possibly, if that had been better, then the sonic result would have been perfect. Possibly some of the string chords sounded like they were a little bit over voiced, and what I mean by that is just, you know, when Herrmann used to write for strings, if you analyze the kind of chord voicings, there was never normally more than 4 or 5 part harmony, very rarely more, not any more than that. So you got to be careful with that. There's a beautiful cello line. I think it's 115. I think it comes in later. Absolutely. I don't know what sample you're using for that, but that was gorgeous cello line. At 133, there's another nod to Psycho without it being too obvious, which is good. There's a scream at 156, and that works really well. Generally speaking, putting real screams into music doesn't always come off, but I think that worked really well. Good example of clever writing, great use of harmonic and textural tropes, as we've talked about before on the show. Some great use of Herrmann style writing without copying him. Very difficult to do so. One thing I would say is if this is written out for a quartet at any point, I mean what you've got going on here, obviously the sound is more than a quartet, because the sample patches which are playing, like, you know, maybe 4 cellos and not just 1. So if at any point you do end up realizing this for a quartet, you might need to embellish it with samples on top of the quartet. But that would be great, because when you use a sample library with a live quartet and you do it well, you can often convince everybody that everything is real. So very, very well done. Very impressed.
Yeah, similar points. You know, well done, Paul. I really like this submission. I mean, reading your notes, you wanted to recreate a Bernard Herrmann style score, and you did, similar to Daniel's point. I think you did a really good job of that. There was parts of the Psycho title sequence that I could hear in that score as well, actually.
It's the bit that goes yeah. Sorry for butting in. No,
that was because I was like, watch, but it's because and what you did, similar to Psycho, actually, you repeated the motifs later on as well. So I thought it was a really good sort of representation. I think because when you started to repeat the motifs, I started to think, maybe there was too many Bernard Herrmann references. But I mean, tipping its hat to Bernard Herrmann really well. Similar to what I said to Daniel, once you do that, I think then there's a big emphasis on the production of making this, those strings sound, the real deal. I know it's difficult to do that. And there's one other thing actually that I noticed, because the bit is at the start, so when he runs to the door and then opens the door, I thought that was great. And then he comes down the stairs, and I thought he was still in the mode. The music was still in the mode of him being rushing down the stairs, where in the picture that bit had finished and we'd moved on to another bit. So I thought it could have been shaped a little bit to sort of fit the visuals there. And then which then leads into the drama of him seeing Nosferatu in the coffin. So I thought that there could have been a bit more sort of shape around that bit, but a great interpretation of it, of a sort of Bernard Herrmann style score. There was another bit further on actually, and then you started to add in other instruments, other layers, and I thought, maybe it's getting a bit too busy in places as well. I think Brian pointed this out about writing it for a string quartet. So sometimes I think taking stuff away rather than adding can be more effective, but really great to listen to, and full of energy. So well done, Paul. Is there anything you want to respond to?
Well, no, thank you very much. It was a very creepy film clip.
Mm-hmm.
The haunting of the eyes of the actors,
Mm-hmm.
being black and white. I wanted it to reflect the harshness of it all, because it was very bare, and I thought if I could try and capture that, then that was successful, I feel. So yeah, but thank you very much. Your comments are great.
Thank
Yeah, well
you.
done.
I just want to interrupt quickly to point something out actually for everybody. Just a reminder, because I know that this is a little bit confusing, that the string quartet that we will be awarding every month, it doesn't have to be used for the score that you submitted. So you can use the string quartet for anything you like, but your prize will be for your score, if that makes sense. So it's a bit different from Score Relief, where the prize is to have your winning score performed by the orchestra. With these string quartet prizes, it's basically you get 30 minutes of the string quartet to use however you like. So, which means, of course, that when you're submitting your rescores, they can be anything you like. They can be electronic, they can be classical guitar, they can be anything you like. So, yeah. Okay. Sorry, quick interjection there. Stefan, over to you.
Right, yeah. So next up we have John Gonzalez. I think, yes. Okay, right. Let's play this one. Okay, here we go.
Okay. I think that was excellent as well. Obviously, John's written here that first time I've written an atonal score. Well, I think if that's the first time, then that is superb. That was really, really good. It was very convincing, because writing atonal music is not easy. And the thing about atonal music is it can so easily come across as just simply being wrong if it's not done very well. If you just go and play any old dissonance on the keyboard, then it's not going to work. Often dissonances just as forensically realized as consonances. In fact, it's harder to realize it. So very, very well done with that. Great introductory strings, which give way to a much more abstract and dissonant, introspective kind of vibe, which I think really works brilliantly with the film. Around 41, there was some nice, somber and sad, reflective music. And again, there aren't many composers who can flit between abstract kind of 20th century harmony, early 20th century harmony, to basically reflective romanticism and get away with it in one scene. I think this is a great submission because it mixes abstraction, fear, but also melancholy, sadness. And the fact that you've managed to cram that into a 2-minute film without it seeming like it was overwritten is really good. I think this underpins music's role in a film like this, especially when it is a score, 100 years after the film was made. I think you've really made a good deal of that. High string writing too, very, very good. That's not easy at all. Some great 20th century harmony. Stefan, who's the guy that did the 2001 that we often talk about, did all the weird stuff? Ligeti. I couldn't remember his name. There's some stuff that's very Giorgi Ligeti, and maybe even a little bit of George Crumb, actually. I don't know. I would like to know, if we get a chance to talk to you at some point, who your influences are, actually, when you're writing atonal music. But very, very, very well done. Very hard gig to do atonal music, and you've pulled it off really well.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Ligeti because that bit with the Discovery spacecraft in it in 2001. Yeah, I thought this was great as well. I mean, what Brian said. What's good about this score is it captured so many different elements. So it captured the tragedy, the sadness, but it also, in that classic silent film way, had some melodrama to it as well. So it was like all these emotions that the music's in charge of, because there's no dialogue, obviously, just brought out all the key moments in the film. And I thought it was so the atmosphere of it was really spot on. So it was a mixture of the atmosphere, the melodrama, and some of the storytelling. If there was any points that I would sort of flag up, was I thought that the bit where Nosferatu sort of dies at the end maybe could have been enhanced further, because it sort of didn't quite match some of the kind of melodrama that was kind of earlier on. It's always that scene for me, particularly because it's sort of when he sort of bends backwards and stuff, and it's like that needs to be sort of enhanced. So I thought that, if I had any sort of small points to make, but I thought it was a very successful submission and liked it a lot. And I think it feels like, it might have been easy to do this piece, but you can tell there was a lot of craft in it, actually. So yeah, very well done.
Can I just interject again? So you mentioned 2001, and that brought to mind the masterclass that we're going to do a week today, which we're going to be talking about things of that ilk. And obviously I don't know exactly what you're going to include in the masterclass, but I know that when we were discussing it earlier, 2001 was part of the conversation. So whether it gets included in the masterclass, we'll all have to find out next week. So no spoilers as such, but we will be talking about scoring in that ilk. And so that's at the same time, the same place, next week, with the same 3 beautiful faces. So yeah, please join us for that. Sorry, I'll shut up again.
Okay. Right, so next up we have Stefan Ilevsky. Let's cue that one. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Brian. So Brian, you have to be muted. Right. No, so yeah. Right. I'll run again.
Okay, right. I thought that was really good too. Some interesting use of percussion at the start, and also some really convincing, great, heavy, general, low brass and woodwind samples and sounds. Again, like I've often said before, I'd be really interested where those samples came from, because they did really sound very realistic. So well done for that. Around, I think, 19 seconds and other places there's a choir that comes in. Generally okay, but you do have to be careful with choirs when using samples. They can so easily sound MIDI and sound a little bit odd. Generally speaking, sampled choirs, depending on which library you use, they only seem to work in a very narrow range of sounds, you know, certainly within one octave. Once you start going to low choirs, it starts to sound a little bit kind of false. Really inventive and dramatic writing around 40 seconds, possibly a little bit too heavy on the bells, if I'm being honest. Romantic bits were really good, as we see the woman put her hands in the air. Great romantic writing. And again, I think a few times you've got a harp line that comes in, a harp flourish, and again, really real sounding. Altogether, there's some great musical ideas that you've utilised. You've utilised most aspects of the orchestra here, so well done. Also, some really effective romantic gestures, again around 2:30. Sometimes, if I'm being hypercritical, sometimes the musicality seemed to be a little bit difficult. Sometimes it seemed to be a little bit too much. Overcooking something like this is easily done because it's silent and we just go piling in there with music and you get carried away. And I think that possibly the main criticism would be just that there were certain areas that we just needed to pull back on. but some really great music here. I guess the criticism is there's just too much of it. That's the main criticism. So great, Steph, over to you.
Yeah, there was lots that I really liked about this. I thought there was a real vision, great vision to it. I thought it was really confidently put together. I thought the storytelling was good in this actually, and the craft. So what sort of really sort of jumped out to me was I thought the hit points were done very well actually, and it did that thing that I've been mentioning to everyone else actually, was about the when Nosferatu dies. I thought that bit there was done really well. It was packed full of textures, so for me maybe too much percussion. I thought perhaps some of that wasn't sort of necessary. Brian's pointed out about some of it sounding very kind of real as well, but I thought it was sometimes, I mean, whilst I think the craft was really well done, that perhaps there was just sort of too much in there. And actually I thought it was rather than silent film, I thought it had a bit later in the sort of in film history, sort of a bit more sort of like 30s or 40s classic cinema really, score. It's kind of like swashbuckling type score, but I thought it was really well done, and you know, particularly in terms of hit points and characterization. So you know, a good piece. Well done.
Excellent. So we've been going for an hour, going strong. How many have we got left out of interest?
We've got Aaron's, Ludovic, Magnus, and David.
4.
So we've got 4 more.
4 more. Let's go for it. Everybody good? Everyone comfortable? Anybody need a bathroom break? Feel free if you do.
We've got Aaron next.
Okay, cool.
Let's go for it. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Again, I thought this was really good. Some really dramatic, some abstract, dissonant, and texturally very inventive music. Some of the brass lines, quite a lot of the brass lines, and particularly the lower cello and bass lines, do sound very real. I'd be interested which samples, I don't know if he's here, but I'd be interested to know which samples were being used there, because they were very, 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 very realistic. Some great use of harmony, including around 1 minute where the music becomes very romantic and reflective, and also some great use of what I think was an oboe. And again, this sounded very convincing. Some incredible.
This is Aaron who's with us, right?
Yeah, Aaron's
Oh,
here.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, carry on, and we can. Aaron can answer some of these questions. Yeah, sure.
Okay. So yeah, they sounded very convincing. Some of the incredible string writing at the 2 minute mark, with bits of clarinet, I think it was as well. Very convincing from a harmonic and textual perspective. So great use of samples and great control of the samples to make them sound so much like a real orchestra. Some very good dramatic chords and sections of abstraction. Main criticism, I guess, would probably be that there are quite a lot of different separate musical approaches in this clip, which are compressed into a relatively short clip, and this can often make the music sound like it's like a permanent presence and something which can't be switched off. That's often when you flip from one stylization to another stylization. It can sometimes not always work, but there are some great ideas. And I've put here, it's just like many members, I think you've possibly taken the absence of dialogue and sound design as an invitation to possibly overscore it, but very, very well done. Very well done.
Yeah, similar points, Aaron. I really like this. I thought the melodrama was great. I mean, very melodramatic, which is right for this kind of clip. Storytelling was great. I have to say, I like what you did at the end with the little title card stuff. Thought that was really nice touch actually. To as like almost a showreel presentation. I thought that it's good to see people be inventive like that. Really, really good. What also came to me was that Alfred Hitchcock has like this visual motif of stairs that he uses in lots and lots of his films, and you had like a musical motif of whenever stairs were involved. That's where you really went for it, and I thought that was really well judged actually. First when he goes down at the beginning, but then when he sort of disappears up the stairs, you emphasise that. I thought that was really good. The bit with Nosferatu's shadow coming up the stairs. I thought the use of scoring for stairs was, you'd obviously carefully considered that. So I thought that was really great. I thought, as Brian pointed out, about sometimes there's there's a mixture in the samples. Some were kind of quite exposed, and then others were like really great. So I'm interested to hear how you sort of did that and what you were using. But I think it's really strong writing, and the emotional section at the end I really liked. And that has been talking about it a lot tonight. That bit with Nosferatu when he sort of dies, you went for it there, and I thought that was really effective. So absolutely, well done. Maybe it was packed full of stuff and some of it could be stripped away, but really enjoyed it. So very well done. Is there anything you want to say in response?
In defense.
Defense. No, thank you so much. I'm using Spitfire libraries for these, and I tend to compose as if I were thinking of live musicians. So I actually write a score in Dorico as if they were going to play it live, and that helps me make it sound a bit more real than if I just play with my keyboard and use that. But thank you.
No worries.
Well done.
Did you? did that answer your questions, Brian, about the sounds? About
Yeah,
the,
absolutely. Yeah,
about the
It's- I'm amazed
cello
that-
and everything.
I'm amazed that it's Spitfire. I mean, Spitfire's a great library, but I've never heard it sound that real before. That to me just sounded unbelievably real. So well done, very, very well done with that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, right. So next up we have Ludwig Charpentier. Let's have a look. Okay, here we go.
Okay. Again, I thought this is a regular comment, but I thought that was really good. I think they're all really good tonight. Some really interesting musical ideas throughout. You've done some very dramatic music, which you've managed to intersperse with moments of introspection and subtlety. And again, that is so hard for a composer to do, to actually go from being manic to being really soft and romantic. It's such a hard transition, that, and you've done really, really well on that. 106, a really nice section, which was just one example of that. I would say in general, I think you've measured the use of drama subtlety very well. Some of the hits are done really well. Possibly the one where the woman's at the window needed to be slightly hit more than it was. In terms of musical ideas, I think maybe not to the same extent, but you've slightly fallen into the trap that most people have by writing many different and separate sections of different sounding stylized music to overcome the fact that it's a silent movie. And possibly that having so many different styles didn't always work, but you wrote brilliantly in all those styles, by the way. It's just that often, I mean, what we're doing here is judging how well it works to picture, not necessarily how good the music is, but how well it works to the film. I think yes, sometimes it can sound as if the composer is trying to squash too much music into the clip. I mean, it was Thomas Newman, I think, that when I spoke to him several times, and he said to me once, the trouble with music is there's too much music in music. And he's a very big critic of just generally music being too full of music, and there isn't enough silence, there isn't enough pauses, there isn't enough introspection. But generally well done. I thought the bit on the bed when the woman was on the bed, that was really clever romantic writing and also quite modern. So really, really well done. Really well done.
Yeah, similar points. I thought, as you know, as a silent film piece, it was really well crafted, and the shape of it was good. You identified the characters, and you put in your notes actually about creating different themes for different characters. So it was clearly in your vision for this, and it worked. I thought it was really effective at the beginning, actually, when it first started and it established itself. It sort of lost its way a little bit. But similar to what Brian says, the bit with the woman on her own further later on, the music there was actually really well done. I thought you could have done more and hit points. Brian mentioned the window, but I also thought the bit with when the coffin as well, when we see Nosferatu in the coffin, it just all felt that bit was something previous and wasn't any sort of development in that point. But it wasn't. I thought parts of this were done really, really well. I thought maybe the samples needed to be sort of worked on a little bit more. The midiness sort of came out a little bit in some of the strings, but it had that. There's a mixture, because Brian mentioned about some elements of it being sort of modern, which I got, but there was some elements that was proper old-fashioned style silent film writing as well. So I thought, in general, this was a really good submission. So well done.
Lovely. Who's next?
So we have Magnus.
Magnus.
Yes.
He's been waiting so patiently. Thank you, Magnus.
Right. Here we go.
Okay, I thought this was really good. I really did. I think this is definitely in my top choices. Some interesting, really good use of dark, low, somber brass, and it's almost good when a composer writes in such a way that it evokes an emotional response from a listener. Like when I heard the brass, I wasn't thinking about sample libraries. I was thinking about the fact that just how somber they sounded, and that's good because it means that the music's working really well. Great hit as we go to the guy on the bed. I think that's almost at the top of the film, about 5 seconds in. Great observation of the hits there. Also, some really great chromatic chord changes, which I think suits the drama of this film really well. And also, as we see Nosferatu's face, I think for the first time, superb. I mean, brilliant chord to accompany that. Great drama as he opens the coffin. Again, the window thing was slightly missed. I'm beginning to think that maybe I'm the odd one out here, because there's quite a few people who've missed the window. I'm maybe thinking I'm wrong about it, but some great examples of dramatic brass and string writing. And at 110 and other places, some examples of real subtlety where you pull back on the music and you allow the film to breathe. So doing that is as much a part of film scoring as writing. Knowing where to write, not what to write, and when to pull out, and it can be so effective. It sounds daft, but pulling out and just having a bit of momentary silence, that's musical silence, don't forget. That's musical silence. It's a shame you didn't do the dramatic thing where she opens the window. Again, that seemed to be a little bit missed, possibly. I would definitely say this is an excellent score, and very, very well done. Full of different styles, but you actually held them together really well. And that's the thing. If you can hold these together really well, and they don't sound like they're just jumping from one to another, then that's really good. So well done, very well done.
Yeah. Also, well done, me, Magnus. I thought this was great. What I noted down, besides not the stuff that Brian's mentioned, and I've also noted down about sort of real genuine sort of vision for this, was what you put in your notes, and you talked about respecting the spotting sheet, and I thought that was, to have that in your notes was great. And then you added to that by talking about importing the film and marking the hit points that were pointed out in the spotting sheet. Now, to me, this is what came across in the film. So I thought there was a lot of precision in the way that you made it work. So things like, yes, hit points. I know the window bit that Brian mentioned as well, and I was similar, but the other bit about, I think, before the window bit with Nosferatu, when we see him at the window staring, I thought the music that you had there sort of surrounded it, and it sort of brought you closer to him, and there was that kind of feeling of vulnerability on that character. So I thought that was a great bit of musical storytelling. So I think the punctuation and the narrative was all really done with a lot of precision, and this to me was because of how much attention you paid to the spotting sheet. Not that other people should have to do it that way, but that's the way you chose to do it, and I thought that was very effective, actually. I did feel that some of the samples needed some sort of developing. I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you'd written in your notes about using BBC Symphony Orchestra from Spitfire for this, and nothing wrong with that. But I thought in general maybe the strings, particularly, needed a bit more work in production. But having said that, I thought it was very, really strong vision. I really enjoyed the energy to this and the precision to it. So well done. Anything you'd like to respond with?
No, I thank you. I'm very happy with those comments. I think it's nice to hear that it all kind of sounds like it belongs together, the entire.
Yeah.
Because I think that's that thing that was most important to me, that it feels like a whole. Being since I come from a concert composition background. Yeah, I probably missed the window. At least I didn't give it that much importance. I am
It's a choice thing, really, I suppose, in some ways. But it did feel I suppose it felt a little bit empty. But for me, I think you made up for it with, as I say, that bit with Nosferatu at the window when he was staring out the window, because I thought that was really musically was really well done, and it just provided a backdrop to the character and the narrative. So really well done.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.
Excellent, thank you, Magnus. Good job.
Right.
So how many left?
We've just got David left now.
Just David.
Yeah.
David, you've been waiting even more patiently. Well done. Thank you for staying. Thank you for staying the course. You deserve a prize just for that. Let's go for it. We've done well. Hour and a half. I was not thinking we'd get it done that quick. That's good.
Okay, here we go. Right.
Okay, I thought this was excellent. I really did. I think this is great string writing, and also what you've written a lot of it would work well with a quartet. Some of it is kind of chamber orientated, but a lot of it would work well with the quartet. Great intro with the tremolo strings that give it that full horror kind of vibe. some really good string writing throughout. Also, you've allowed moments of quietness and introspection and reflection. You haven't just filled it full of music. And like I said before, the absence of sound and dialogue and sound design is not always supposed to be an open invitation for a composer. I think you've done that probably better than most. You've actually not overwritten it, and you've written some really, really nice introspective bits. Your music really has a feeling of being measured and well thought through. There is a kind of compositional authenticity to, I think, to your music. It sounds real, and it sounds actually as if it kind of came with the film. And I think there's no better shot in the arm for a composer to say that the music they've written sounds like it was kind of born with the film. It doesn't sound like it's something that's been done to the film. And that's when film music goes bad, when it sounds like it's something that's been added to it. You know, if it doesn't sound like it's been added and it sounds like it was always meant to be there, then you've absolutely kind of struck gold. So very, very, very well done.
Yeah, similar, David. I mean, what I liked about it was, again, like Magnus, when I read your notes, you put about this, just that it lent itself, I think you'd said, to a small number of instruments, and so you made it work because that was what you could see with it. And I thought you brought this to life. I thought it was almost like sort of watching it somewhere, and there was a kind of live quartet and sort of playing along with it. It had that vibe to it, to me, which I think's not easy to pull off. So I thought it felt very authentic from that perspective. I mean, there was perhaps places where I thought you could have maybe crafted it a little bit more, you know, around the coffin a bit again, and maybe you could have gone a little bit more melodramatic in places. But I think, again, you weren't afraid to sort of pull out, and so you left space. Again, you know, as we've said from the beginning, the temptation is just to go back, you know, bang, there's no dialogue, just cover it in music. You weren't afraid to use a smaller number of instruments and just punctuate it with space. I mean, that to me was, you know, conceptually really well done. As some of the scores stayed a little bit to the same in places, so I thought, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of sort of development could have happened. But the production, I thought, again, of the samples, because there is a small amount of instruments, there's going to be a real focus on those, on how they sound, and you made that work, actually, because you could definitely run the risk there. But great job. I thoroughly enjoyed it, so well done, David. Anything you'd like to say in response?
No, just thank you very much for the feedback. I'm here to practice, so your feedback is highly appreciated and humbling. Thank you for the kind compliments. You know, I just hope to get better and better, like we all do, I think. And yeah, it was very challenging, but also, you know, this is just great to do. So thank you very much.
Yeah, great job. Well done.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brian and Stefan, for your fantastic feedback, as always. And thanks to those of you that came onto the Zoom, and to everybody else that's been joining us on the live stream. There's been a lot of chat. Everybody's enjoying all of those scores that we've listened to. So that's really nice. We only have one more thing left to do, I think, chaps, which is the nomination for this month's, the first really of our string quartet prizes with this new thing that we're doing. So I think, Brian, you wanted me to do it, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you deserve to do it, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a difficult decision because I thought there was a lot of, you know...
It was.
Obviously, a lot of effort has been put into this.
Indeed.
You know, And I think, for everyone else
Yeah.
as well, it's just a great learning experience and to do this. So well done to everyone. Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
I would love to give all of you a string quartet, but we don't quite have the revenue right now for that. So in the meantime, our lucky solitary winner this month, unfortunately, is not with us on the stream here.
No.
I hope I've got the name right. John Gonzalez, yes? Was that the nomination?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So congratulations, John. John has been one of our regulars, so it's nice to see that happen. So obviously, John, I'll be in touch with you and help you explain how that works and help you get ready for it and everything. But chaps, don't be disappointed, and ladies, if you're listening, don't be disappointed. Next month is another go. We've got the Insects documentary still open until Monday morning UK time, and then that will be replaced, if you like, by a new film clip during the course of Monday. So yeah, you've got the weekend to work on that. I'm sure you've got nothing else to do with your lives, so have fun. Have fun with that. Have any of you submitted or are planning to submit the Insects one out of the 6 of you?
Yeah.
Not this time.
Lots of hands going in the air. This is what we
Good
like to
stuff.
see. You're all scratching from watching the bugs, yeah? You're all like, I've seen too many of these, too many of these bugs. So excellent. Well, I look forward to hearing your insects interpretations. Maybe a bit of Bernard Herrmann with the insects. That would be nice, I think. Let's mix it up a bit here. Well, thank you again. I haven't forgotten anything, have I, chaps? I can easily forget things, but I think we're going to do the Fracture Sounds Wheel of Fortune thing on the live stream this time next week, because we had some technical hitches this afternoon which ate into the preparation time, so we're going to take care of that next week. So yeah, there's still a chance to win that, so it'll be a sample library from Fracture Sounds, and they're all excellent quality, so well worth tuning in for that. So
well done to everyone.
Thanks everyone, take care, have a great weekend.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys.
See you next time. Bye for now.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.